In this video, I'm going to show you 5 ways you can hack your HSA account to maximize its benefits. So to get started, your HSA just stands for Health Savings Account. In order to be eligible for one, you need to have coverage under a high deductible health plan that is eligible for an HSA. Essentially, your HSA is an IRA for healthcare expenses. So the money goes in pre-tax, grows tax deferred, and can come out tax-free. Now, if you want more details on the basics of it, check out this video over here. Now let's get right into the hacks. So hack number 1 is you can actually invest your HSA account. Now this may seem pretty basic to some of you, but many people don't know this. By default, when you put money into your HSA account, it goes to cash and it just sits there, earns a very small interest rate. So one way to maximize the benefits is actually invest your HSA account. Because remember, the investments will grow tax deferred, and if you use it for medical, it comes out tax free. And if you're young enough that you don't really need this money for medical expenses, this can be a great way to grow this money to use for your retirement. Now, depending on your provider you have, they're going to have different investment options, different fees associated with that. Some of them may have different minimums, so they'll require you to keep $1,000 in cash before you can even attempt to invest money. Some are $2,000, so it depends on the carrier that you have as far as what their restrictions are and what their investment lineup is. Some of these HSA providers have a very small lineup, and some give you just total brokerage access where you can invest in any stock and mutual fund in the world that you want to. So the provider that you choose for your HSA can determine a lot of these things. Now, if you are stuck in one that you're not a big fan of, or maybe you don't like the user interface, want something a little easier, maybe you want to looking at getting cheaper fees, that actually leads right into hack number 2, is that you can actually transfer your HSA account. So if you have an HSA and you have an employer that's putting money into it, you're still eligible to move that money to a different HSA provider one time per year or once every 12 months. So if you don't like your current provider, if you do some research, you can actually do that one-time transfer over to them. The money has to be liquid or in cash before it transfers. Now, before you do the transfer, typically the money has to transfer in cash. So if it's invested, you're going to have to sell off your positions. Don't worry about any gains that you had. It's all going to be tax-free. Once the money's in cash, then they're going to cut a check and send it directly to the HSA provider. It's called a trustee or trustee transfer. That's the easiest way to do it. And you don't have to worry about taxes. Sometimes they'll give you the option to do an indirect roller where they give you the check first and then you have to forward it to the new company. Try to avoid that if you can. It just makes things easier and you can avoid a taxable situation if you don't get that check forwarded over in a timely manner. All right, hack number 3 is that you can actually transfer an IRA into an HSA. Now, there are restrictions and rules to this, so let me explain. So the money has to come from an IRA. It cannot be a 401k or 403 or any other account. It has to be an IRA. It could be a Roth IRA, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense, seeing that it's already tax-free. In order for this to work, you have to actually be enrolled in a high deductible plan still, so you're eligible for the HSA, and you have to maintain coverage for 12 months after the transfer occurs. So if I move my IRA into my HSA, I can't just cancel and move to a different plan the next month. I have to stay in that high deductible plan for 12 months. Otherwise, that rollover becomes a taxable distribution, and then I have to pay taxes on that money. Now, this transfer is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So you can only do this transfer one time in your entire lifetime, and then that's it. So it's not something you can continually roll money into every single year. Now, as far as how much you can contribute, you can only contribute up to the maximum allowed for that year. So if I'm an individual in 2022, that's $3,650. I could take that $3,650 from my IRA account, move it into my HSA account. So this can be a good strategy to use if you have money in an IRA account and you're not currently maxing out your HSA through your monthly contributions or not doing anything at all. This could be a good strategy for you to take money from an IRA you may have sitting on the side and dump it into here. All right, HSA hack number 4, how to put an extra $1,000 a year into your HSA account above and beyond what the IRS limits say they are. So let me explain the strategy here. Once you turn 55, you're eligible to put an extra $1,000 per year on top of your contribution. So if you're an individual, it's $3,650 is the limit in 2022. If I'm over 55, it's actually $4,650. So the hack comes in play if you have a spouse. So if you have a spouse and they have their own healthcare coverage that is HSA eligible, rather than getting a family plan, if you guys both have your own HSA accounts, you guys are both eligible for $1,000 each. So you can both put that $4,650 away into each account, giving you a total of $9,300 for the year. The family limits are $8,300 a year. So if you and your spouse are eligible to have your own HSA account and you max those benefits out, you can actually put up to $9,300 a year into this account, which is actually $1,000 over what the annual limit says they are for family. All right, so on to HSA hack number 5. Now this is one that I didn't quite realize it was there until this past year. and that is that there's no timeline as far as when I need to take a reimbursement from my HSA account. So remember that your HSA account can reimburse you for medical expenses you incur. However, there's no timeline as far as when you can go back and claim that. So if I had a medical bill, say $1,000 here in 2022, and I decided, hey, I could take it from my HSA, but I'm only going to leave that money there so it can continue to grow and invest, I'll just pay it out of pocket. I have the cash. It's not doing anything in my savings account anyways. I'll just pay it out of pocket. As long as I keep that receipt in 5 or 10 years from now, and I said, hey, I could actually need that extra $1,000 for something, I could go back to my HSA account, show them the receipt, and pull out that $1,000 for the expense I incurred 10 years prior. And that money comes to me tax-free because it was reimbursing for my medical expense, even if it was 10 years later. So this is a way for you to really maximize the benefit of an HSA. By paying out of pocket while you're working and still have extra cash flow and money in savings, you can let your HSA continue to grow for you in the future. Don't take any distributions, can let it compile and pile, because chances are you're going to need this money in the future, whether it's when you need it for paying for health insurance between 62 and 65, or anytime after that. So this is just a little known tip that you can use to fully maximize the benefit of your HSA account. If you have found this video helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up so it spreads to more people. See you guys next week. Remember that your future depends on what you do today.